Cousin played with my meat while I was asleep and I wasn't mad. For some background, me and my cousin are really close and do everything together. She's 1 year older than me. We hate being apart from each other. We go to the movies, to the mall, and even go out to eat together. I never looked at her in any romantic way. We were so close her parents even let us have sleepovers. I went over to her house like any other day. When I walked in, she had these shorts that made her bottom look insanely huge. My manhood got rock hard. She came in for a hug and I was hoping she didn't feel it. She would have been grossed out. Her parents were in the living room watching TV, so we headed up to her room. At this point, I'm trying to get that behind bottom, if you know what I mean. She kept insisting me to have some water, so I just said, yeah. I drank the water and we started watching Netflix. Just 10 minutes in, I got sleepy out of nowhere. I was so tired I wasn't even rock anymore. I told her I was going to sleep and she was all right with it. But then out of nowhere I wake up to her, going at it with my pants all the way down. I can't believe what was happening. I was enjoying myself but so confused at the same time. I got her off of me because at the end of the day we're cousins. After that happened I looked at her in a different way. If you were in my situation, what would you do? Follow, or this happens to you.
Is the most terrifying encounter you've ever had? A week or so before my 10th birthday, I walked to the corner store with a $5 bill and picked up a jar of ragu for my mom. On my way home, a man I'd never seen before fell in step with me and began talking. "Hi," he said, cheerfully. "My name is Dr. Ramsey. I'm a pediatrician. Do you know what a pediatrician is?" I walked along silently, not replying and fervently hoping he would take that as a sign he should leave me alone. Subtleties were not his strong suit, though, because he kept right on chattering. "Are your parents looking for a pediatrician for you? Of course, you're almost a big girl now, you'll be needing another kind of doctor soon, won't you? That's okay though. They can still bring you to me until then. What's your name? You have beautiful hair." I was just on my way to get some suckers for the candy jar in my office. "Do you like suckers?" Thankfully, we were nearing my house, so I ran forward, up the back steps and into through the kitchen door. I didn't know it then, but that was the beginning of a very long, very scary ordeal. It didn't take long after that for Dr. Ramsey to begin showing up. At first, it seemed benign enough, at least to a kid. He would drive by nearly every day, smiling and waving. I told my mom, who said maybe it was on his way home from work. But then, the phone calls began. My dad called me into the living room, and sat me down. He asked about the day Dr. Ramsey followed me home, and if I talked to him. He said I wasn't in trouble, but that I needed to tell him the truth. I told him no, and he asked if I was sure, could I be forgetting something? I told him no again, and he frowned, then asked, "Then does he know your name?" I didn't know. It turns out, that was not all he knew. He knew my sister's name as well. Pretty soon, neither my sister nor I were allowed to answer the phone. He called several times a day. At first, neither of us knew what he was saying. Then, one night, one of my brothers told us that he was telling my parents that he was going to hurt me, and later, my sister. Things got complicated after that. My dad had called the police, but as this was before there were any stalking laws, there was not a lot they could do. They told my parents to call back if he tried anything. My dad then called a friend of his from back in the day, who happened to be a cop. For the next month, my dad's friend escorted me to and from school. Suddenly, life as I knew it came screeching to a halt. I couldn't walk to school alone, I couldn't play outside, I couldn't walk to Super America, sort of like a 7-Eleven for those who don't know. When access to me was completely denied, things escalated. It was around this time he began threatening my sister as well. Then one afternoon my sister, two of my brothers, my mom and I were in the kitchen. One of my brothers saw a glimpse of someone in the garage, they'd seen him too. Dr. Ramsey came bolting out of the garage, my brothers chasing after him. They ran all the way to Cherokee Park, where he lost them in the trees. My parents called the police again, but nothing came of it. The only information they had was a description and a name that was almost certainly fake. A couple weeks later, we woke to find our dog hanging from the side porch. She was a gorgeous saddleback German Shepherd, born the same day I was. We were all devastated. The cops said there was no evidence it was him, and ruled it accidental, but none of us believed that. His phone calls became more informative in the meantime. He would talk about who was home, and who wasn't. If my brother would say my dad was home, he would tell him who was really in the house. He also would talk about the house itself, about the window in the kitchen he could easily open with a knife from the outside even when it was locked, and about the French doors that connected the living room to the side porch and how the lock could be finagled from the outside if you jiggled it just right. That night, my dad put in some carpenter nails at the bottom of the French doors until he could get a new lock ordered. My parents had to go to a company event for my dad's work. My older brothers were at Saints West roller skating rink. My sister was on the phone with her best friend. My little brother was on the floor asleep. I was watching Devo on the midnight special with Wolfman Jack. It was late. Suddenly, the top of the French door swung inward, and in the few milliseconds before the nails in the bottom caused them to snap back, I could see his silhouette. My sister whipped the phone at the television, and we ran up the stairs. About halfway up, we realized our little brother was still asleep on the living room floor. As quiet as we could, we slipped back down the stairs to get him. We all went into our bedroom and didn't turn on the light, this way we could see outside. We watched out the window for a while, and when we didn't find him, we crept down the hall to our brother's room to look. We looked down and could see someone standing at the back door. He knocked, loudly. "What do you want?" My sister asked out the window. He stepped back and said, "Is this the Mercy residence? I have a pizza for delivery. Can you come to the door?" She scoffed at him, declaring she was not stupid, she could see he didn't have a pizza, and she was calling the cops. He left. A short while later, my brothers returned home. We told them what happened and they walked around the yard, watching for him. They came back in, and things settled down. By now we'd pretty much given up calling the cops because it never helped, so we just went back in, each of us, except my youngest brother, still asleep, carrying a knife from the kitchen just in case. Eventually, one of my brothers went into the kitchen to get a bowl of cereal as a snack. You know that sensation you get when you can just feel someone watching you? Yeah, he had that in spades. He kept looking around the kitchen, through the doorway into the dining room, at the windows. He didn't see anything, but he could still feel eyes on him, so he went closer to the door to try to see better. The kitchen lights were reflecting on the windows of the door, it had 3 rows of 3 windows, so he still couldn't see. He stepped closer, then closer again, until he was right up to the door, then cupped his hands on either side of his head so he could see. There on the other side of the window pane was Dr. Ramsey, smiling back at him. He turned to yell for my older brothers, and when he looked back again, he was gone. They went out again to look for him, but didn't see him. The next night we were at the table playing Crazy Eights, and my brother was restless. My sister asked him what's wrong, and he said he always felt like any minute now there would be a boom boom boom. On a door or window. Almost immediately after he finished his sentence, boom boom boom. On the window right behind him. In the chaos, the 2 eldest ran out, but he was already gone. A couple of weeks later, I was at school and we were outside on the playground during recess. I was swinging upside down when I saw that now familiar blue Ford Galaxy cruising by, moving slowly. There he was, smiling and waving. He called my name, and I ran to the teacher and told her. The school had been told all about him, and she took me inside right away and called my mom. That same day my mom had gotten a call from the school office asking her to verify that my dad was picking me up, as he'd called to say he was on his way. He wasn't. Not long after that, I woke up one night, thirsty. I went down to the kitchen for a drink and there, sitting alone in the dark, was my dad. On the table, a gun. He was tired of the police waiting until Dr. Ramsey tried something, he was tired of his children being terrorized, he was tired of being afraid every time he left for work that something would happen to us while he was gone. I sat with him for a time, watching, before he sent me back to bed. These events, and many more, took place over a period of around 18 months. Then, as suddenly as it began, it was over. He had vanished from our lives, the phone calls, the drive-by with the creepy waves, everything. For a long time, during and after the Dr. Ramsey days, I would have a recurring nightmare in which I would wake up to find him standing over me as I slept. It took a long time before I felt like a kid again. I found out years later that when he was calling, Dr. Ramsey would tell my parents that he was going to rape and kill me, and later my sister, and that there was nothing they could do about it. I don't know what happened to him when he disappeared. I don't know if he was in a car wreck, locked in prison, in a coma, but sometimes I wonder if the wait ended for my dad when he was sitting in the darkened kitchen one night. I don't know, and I'm not sure I want to.
My wife spent the whole day taking care of the kids and asked me if she could go lay down. Now, our relationship is about to be laid down 6 feet under. My wife and I don't argue much, and when we do, we usually communicate well afterward, and things return to normal. I often boast to my friends about how rational my wife is, and her ability to communicate and empathize is something I deeply admire. She's not one to hold grudges and always supports me through tough times. Until now. Due to a fire, my wife is temporarily out of work but still receiving her salary, thanks to insurance. We decided she would stay home with our young son while out of work, even though she isn't particularly fond of child-rearing, which we knew before having kids. Honestly, it's hard to tell because she's a fantastic mom, present and loving, even when I can see she's struggling internally. I give my wife plenty of breaks. We co-parent, splitting bedtime routines for our 2 kids, and we both share the workload. Yesterday was a snow day. My daughter was home with my wife and son while I was working downstairs all day. I helped my daughter with her cyber school until noon. My wife spent the morning outside in the snow with my son, clearing the driveway and sidewalks, and taking care of household chores. My daughter joined them, and from what I could hear and see in some videos, she invited her friends over to play and have hot chocolate. I worked until around 5 to play and have hot chocolate. I worked until around 5 o'clock, and when I went upstairs, chaos ensued. My wife was doing laundry and assisting my daughter, who had fallen and hurt herself on the ice. She sent her friends home, and we had dinner. I took care of the cleanup, and right after finishing, keep in mind, I've been working downstairs all day without even a bathroom break since noon, I went into the playroom, and my wife approached me. Hey, can I go lay down for a bit? Perhaps out of offense, I admit I made a face and said, Me, I haven't gone to the bathroom all day, and I just put cookies in the oven. I could tell I'd messed up by the look she gave me. Her, fine. Never mind. Forget I asked. Heaven forbid. Now sensing some attitude and realizing I've misstepped, I said. Me, no, it's fine. I'll take care of everything. Go take a break. To my complete shock, in front of our kids, who may not have been paying much attention, but were still within earshot, my wife said. I said never effing mind. I've been running around on my feet all day, watching our kids and other people's kids, and heaven fucking forbid I asked for 20 minutes to myself. Again, I said, go take a break. I told you it was fine, but she seemed to have lost her composure and was seeing red. She started cleaning up and tending to the kids, and I tried to overcompensate, but she took over caring for them, and they listened to her. In the hallway, I said, I think you forget I work all day, to which she replied viciously. Her, thanks for reminding me. I almost forgot, I feel bad. I understand she works hard taking care of the kids, but I work hard too. Maybe not having her job and time away makes her reaction to our fight worse. The next day, she texted me as usual. She told me she was upset about my behavior and how I treated her. She mentioned she was looking after 6 kids all day in the snow alone, yet still managed to clean the whole house and tidy up our craft room. I told her I'm stressed at work and didn't get why she was so upset since I offered her a break, but she said, I don't want your pity breaks. She ended with, thanks for the apology by the way, which, yeah, I didn't really apologize, but for what? Then she asked for the number of my daughter's piano teacher. That's the only activity I handle for my kids. Later, I found out she texted my wife, asking to coordinate schedules through her from now on. Normally, my wife would ask me if I could pick up our daughter from dance on my way home. I do this every week. But this time, I didn't hear anything, and when I got home, I learned my wife had already taken care of it. I confronted her, saying, I'm very involved with our children. Don't paint me as an absent father. She replied, if I didn't manage and ask you for help, you'd see them a quarter of the time you do now. And I'm done managing you. I get it. I should have just agreed when she asked for help, but this feels extreme. She's throwing a fit and seems to be trying to push me out of my relationship with my kids. It's so petty. It's like I don't even recognize her anymore. The calm and reasonable communicator is gone. If you've read this far, thank you. And please tell me if I'm wrong here. Relevant comments. His wife seems stressed. Thank you for responding. Her reaction caught me off guard. Usually, she's the most rational person I know. It's been tough for her, and I must admit, I've been stressed at work too, so I didn't notice. I thought a few months off with pay would be a treat. But now I realize, looking after 6 kids and a toddler all day might be as enjoyable as a barrel of monkeys. It seems it's my turn to be understanding and reasonable. She's done it enough for the both of us. Step up and give your wife a breather. You're absolutely right. I usually do that. She asks me for a break at least 3 times a week, whether it's to take a bath or read, and I almost always say yes right away. It was just a momentary lapse, and I know I reacted poorly, but she's completely shutting me out. This morning, I had to argue with her just to let me take our kid to school because she said she'd do it. And the kids just clung to her, but when I insisted, my kid started crying for her. She had to calm him down and convince him that going with dad is fun just to undo what she did. He was fine with going with me, but it's messy and so unnecessary. I'm worried about her behavior. I love my wife, and I don't want to push her away. What's your wife's routine like? My wife has 2 days during the week without our son or daughter. She's been busy painting the house and doing deep cleaning. My son is away from 8 to 2, and my daughter from 9 to 3, on Mondays and Fridays. I think the snow day may have overwhelmed her, but hopefully, she'll come around and be sensible. I've never known her to shut me out or stop communicating, and it's really worrying me. That's partly why I think there might be more to this argument. Update 1. I made one thoughtless, selfish remark to my wife about a week ago, and now everything's turned upside down. My wife is going through some sort of crisis. Her workplace is closed, and she's getting paid, but she's home with our kids now, including our 3-year-old. She gets breaks on Monday and Friday with childcare. We went into parenthood knowing she wanted to continue working, so this has been quite an adjustment. To say the least. Now, onto the original argument. After a long day with our kids and the neighbor's kids, my wife asked for a break when I came upstairs from work, and I didn't react well. I made excuses and didn't offer to help, and for the first time in years, my wife lost her temper and used some strong language toward me. I acted like a fool, insisting I was right. I admit, we both said some hurtful things. But after some humbling on Reddit and my wife making me sit down to compare lists of what we each did for the family that day, hers being longer, I apologized. She accepted, and I thought things would go back to normal. But they haven't. My wife used to involve me in parenting our kids. We shared dance pickups most weeks, bedtime duties were divided, I gave baths, made dinner, did all the usual stuff. Since our argument, though, my wife hasn't asked me for any help with the kids. The first morning I woke up on what was supposed to be my morning with them, I thought she was just being nice or trying to make a point, but it keeps happening. She didn't even send them down to say goodnight last night. Normally, she'd play a silly game where she'd send my son to ask me to read 5 books, then we'd negotiate down to 1 or 2 and race upstairs. Last night, I heard her racing him and found her doing bedtime yet again. The kids haven't even noticed. It's like she's replacing me. During our argument, I said something really dumb that's been eating away at me. My wife was being harsh and said, you wouldn't see the kids a quarter as much as you do if I didn't arrange it, and I'm done managing you. I tried to defend myself, saying I'm not an absent parent, and blurted out something like, I'd like to see how long you can manage without me. Foot officially in mouth. Now she's taken up running again, cooking really healthy meals often. Every night, I come home to my perfectly happy, Stepford-like wife, doing everything without me, and I feel hollow inside. How do I fix this? I don't even know where to start. At this point, I just want to beg her to go back to how things were. This wasn't what we agreed upon. Relevant comments. I don't know, maybe step up? Get involved without her having to organize it or tell you what to do? Are you really this oblivious? It's tough when the kids prefer her and she seems to handle everything better than me. I work a lot too. It used to help when she'd clue me in on the plan with the kids, but I'm starting to realize that maybe that's over now. But he doesn't know what to do. If she doesn't send the kid to him with an instruction of what books, and how many, are to be read, how is he supposed to know what to do? Frown up, that wasn't just a silly game.